I couldn't do what I'm doing without people like you. So you're playing a very major role in disclosure for humanity. And that's why I'm doing this. This is not about me. This is about this worldwide phenomenon, which is worldwide, and it's about humanity. It's not about me at all, and it's not about fame and glory and all that thing. This is just something that all my life, this is what nobody likes me to use the word groomed, but basically it's what they've done is they prepared me, got me ready to step forward and do what I'm doing now. And, you know, I enjoy it. I didn't ever think I would do it, but I am. And now I love it, and it comes real natural to me because I have help from them, I'm pretty sure.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
we're definitely honored to be included in this.
Well, thank you.
disclosure.
And thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
So why don't you introduce yourself and explain a little bit about your background to our audience?
Sure. Well, my name is Nancy Timms. I am a lifelong contactee with interdimensional beings and extraterrestrials. And my first conscious memories started around, go back as far as 2 and 3 years old. And my experiences and my visits with them were very pleasant and very friendly and fun. And I always look forward to it. At that age, I was not influenced by the world around me. As I got older, when I started to read and when, finally I was told that I couldn't talk about these things, where when I was little, my parents thought it was cute, very vivid imagination, and they didn't mind it so much. But they would always say, go back to bed, you're having a dream, that kind of thing.
Of course.
But, when I got older, they took it more serious. I was very active in sports. I was active in the Girl Scouts, and my father was a broadcaster and even owned a radio station. So he was a
cool.
public figure kind of within the community. And this is not something that you would want your daughter to go out talking about, when you're, trying to run a business that is supported by a county. So anyway, long story short, to keep peace within my family and from getting a good whipping, I kept my mouth shut and I suppressed it for a long, long time. And it wasn't that hard to do when I was younger. Really, it's as I got even more older, the conscious time started to increase and the frequency exchange. I was more aware of we being in 3D realm, we're at a very small frequency compared to theirs. So when you are like in a room face to face with them, you feel that frequency and it's overwhelming. For me, it was not what they looked like, which was different. And it wasn't typical of what you would see, but it was the frequency, the way it made me feel, my body's response, my brain's response to these feelings that, I'd never experienced before. And I didn't know good or bad, what is this? Mm-hmm. And they were very patient with me and gave me lots of time to come to my own understanding. And I realized as I did get older, I had to work on my fear because I had let what the world around me, what I was seeing on television, what other people were saying were influencing me and making me question my experiences. So, and it got to where I would keep I have the ability, I know before they're coming, I feel it. I have a frequency increase within my own body and I feel it. So at that point, when I was having the anxiety associated with it, I would keep my eyes closed and then they would start, I would keep my eyes closed, but they would like change my vibrational frequency by going from head to toe, toe to head, head to toe, so on, so on. And then I would feel my body start to elevate off the bed. And as that would happen, I would look around because I knew I was floating. And then I would see that I was holding hands with a female gray.
I have a quick question.
Sure.
When you say you felt your body levitate, was this your physical body or your physical body? Okay.
Yes. So I would look down. My bed was empty.
Okay.
I would take my hand, touch myself, check, everything's in check.
Uh-huh.
And then what was really strange though was she would lead me up through the ceiling or lead me through a window or lead me through a door. And I never understood how in the world they were able to do this because, I was junior high age and taking science classes and biology and blah, blah, blah. And these things were not physical things that human beings could do. So it was very confusing. But as I would be going through the ceiling, I would look around and see the insulation around the walls. I would see stacked up boxes that my parents, they would store things like Christmas stuff, different things. And I would see these things. So it was very confusing, very confusing. And it wasn't until I got later on into my 20s that they started giving me more conscious time. And that's when I realized that I had to eliminate this fear, or I was never going to get any further in these experiences. And I realized that they were not going to stop. This was not something that was, for me, I've never been abducted at all. I found out when I was a mother. I woke up one night and I felt their presence, and I raised up and looked ahead of me, and 3 short grays appeared in my room. And these were not the same grays that come for me. These had on high collars and wore robes, and one approached me and took the hand and pressed me down on this side, the left-hand side, and said telepathically, "This is not about you. Lay back down." And so as he guided me back down, then he put me in a sleep paralysis. And so I was laying there physically wide awake, conscious, but I could not speak and I could not move. I was scared, angry, mad, a whole lot of things, confused. I felt helpless because then they walk over and take my 2 sons, who were very young children at the time, by the hand, and then walk them out across the room. I was on a vacation with an ex-husband, and he and I were in one bed. We were at a Marriott hotel at Key West on the beach, and we were in one bed, and the boys were in the other bed. So they marched them out and I could just, kind of see, what the best I could by laying down and just using, because I could not move. And so then they apparently took me out of the sleep paralysis and I went to sleep. And then the next morning when I woke up, I looked over and they were safe and sound in their bed. So we all went to breakfast, and I asked my boys if they had any strange dreams or any oddity in the night that they would like to talk about. And they just said no. So I left it alone because I had figured out that a lot of times when I would be scared or fearful or have a little anxiety, they have the ability to put you in a trance-like state. Well, I told you they put me in a sleep paralysis, but they can also put you, if you're very scared, very crying or emotional, very intensely, they will put you in a kind of it's like being in a trance, and you're fully functional. You can move around and you can go through the whole experience, but it takes out all of the drama, it takes out all of the emotions. So you're just basically a very cooperative human being. And you're just like going through the experience. But the problem with that is when you get back and wake up, your memories are fragmented. So you have the bits and pieces. And that is very, very stressful because your brain wants to fit in this missing time or missing pieces. Like people think they have missing time and they can't remember. Well, your brain wants to fill in these gaps. So a lot of times what you'll remember is the fear that brought it on. And the reason why this happens is because they are telepathic. Everything that we feel, which in their reality, they do not have these emotions. But whatever we feel, they feel 10 times the amount that we feel. It's not pleasant to them. They don't understand it. It's not fun. So that's why they'll put us in that trance-like, sedated-like state, because that way we continue on and we have our experience and they do what their, whatever it is their intention is, which in my case is they were teaching me things, and they were also doing exams to check on my spiritual growth, my mental health, and basically checking my physical health and a lot of other things, so, but you hear a lot of people that will have all these horrible abduction stories. And I think now we are just now we're going through an evolutionary phase. Humanity is going through an evolutionary stage. We are reaching higher consciousness. This is a pivotal moment and the biggest point that's happening to us since our creation. So with that said, what that means is that through higher consciousness, we are going to understand the world around us more. We're going to understand that there's more things going on than what we can see or understand with our limitations of being in a 3D world. We use our 5, 6 senses to understand our world around us and to understand what's before us. So I think that this is part of an evolutionary process. Is a lot of what was happening was part of a preparation to get us where we are, but we didn't understand it. And it's just like back in biblical days, you heard about them talk about shiny ones, or you've heard that about the Bible, like the shining ones, the shiny ones. So the way that they explain this to me is if we went back in time, if we went back in time and those people at that age and state with their consciousness and their frequency being much lower, if they saw you or I, we would appear as a shiny one to them because of our higher consciousness and our higher frequency. Higher consciousness and higher frequencies or dimensions, even higher dimensions, are not physical places. These are higher levels of consciousness. So our world is changing. Our earth is going through an ascension. We are all going through an ascension, and we are moving from our 3D world up into the 4th dimension. And as that happens, which it will be very slow, and by the time we get to the final phase of it, it will seem like we've always been this way, because it's done just as in our creation in a beautiful, slow way, so that it is not a shell shocker where everybody thinks that these changes that occur are going to freak people out. It's not going to happen that way. It's done intentionally, just like all the beautiful design of our physical bodies, our planet, the heavens, the earth, the stars, and everything was designed in a beautiful way. And that's what's happening to us right now. And that is why, because of humanity reaching this higher level of consciousness, is why the interdimensionals and the majority of extraterrestrials are here now. They're just sitting and waiting for us, because this is what they've been waiting for, is for us to finally be at an intellectual level that we understand they are not gods. They are not angels. They are beings that are billions of years ahead of us in evolution. And they are not here to take over. They're not here to control. They played a part. Notice I said a part. They played a part in our creation. They did not do everything. And it was more than, we have the DNA of more than one race. We have many different races in our creation, and they all believe in a creator source, and they all have souls. So they don't claim to being the creators or the gods of men at all. What I'm referring to are interdimensionals and extraterrestrials that claim to, they help play a part, and they believe in a creator source, and they know that we have souls and they have souls, and they believe and tell me that we are all one. We are all one. And when we all come together as one and we realize, remember our connection with our planet Earth, remember our connections to every living conscious being on this planet, meaning plants, trees, animals, they are all living conscious beings, even insects, our air, our water, everything is living conscious beings. And they've all, including our planet Earth, have been waiting for us to understand our connections, understand we are all one. And when we all come together and work as one, no more manipulation, no more programming from these negative elites, dark forces, et cetera, that have been programming us for decades and making us work these hellacious jobs from 9 to 5, a slave to a banking system and to government taxes, et cetera, and contaminating our air, our food, our water with toxins for the sole purpose, it's done intentionally, to keep us dumbed down, to keep us unhealthy. They cannot make money off of healthy, intelligent individuals. And so they have tried to suppress us as long as possible. And they've done that. They've taken advantage of our lower consciousness. But we are waking up and we are realizing these old programming ways, warlike ways, negative ways, horrible media on the news, all this stuff is censored, everything is controlled. We have never been free. But we had to get to this point. They cannot come down and just fix everything for us. We had to get to this point. But now that they see that we are to this point, we are all waking up, and it's not going to happen overnight, but they are here to assist, to lend a helping hand, not anything else. And they're not going to save us from anything.
Now, I have to ask something, and I hope you don't take offense to anything.
Oh, absolutely not.
So if you think like the same way the government will control us, would it be safe to say that these other beings could do the same thing? Because
they would have already done it if they wanted to. They are a billion years ahead of us in evolution. They were here before we were here. They played a part. Notice I said a part again. They played a part in the creation of Mother Earth, everything on it, the fauna, everything. So what you have to understand is that they do love us and they consider us family. We are like children to them. But what they really love is our planet Earth and all the living conscious beings on it and all things. I mean, indigenous people, and you said something too. It's really not our government that's controlling us. Our government officials are appointed by these elite, really rich people.
Agreed.
They put them in office and then they manipulate and control them and won't even let them pass laws and bills for the betterment of humanity. That's why we're still using fossil fuels.
But who's to say there isn't that other race that's doing the exact same thing to you or anyone else now?
Because let me explain to you. In the process of evolution, with all beings throughout many universes. Notice I said there's more than one universe. There's more than one galaxy. There's more than one different race of extraterrestrials and interdimensionals. Okay. So they're through evolution, just like what they have done. As you go up and progress through evolution, you become a more positive human being. You become a person with more intelligence, and you understand that these warlike ways and these materialistic ways and all these things no longer serve you or humanity. So it's a process, and they've done this billions of years ago. This is not their first rodeo on seeing beings throughout different universes always reach this point, and we're at a point. And our technology is so significant right now. If we don't go into this next phase of higher consciousness, it will stay in this 3D realm and be used in the wrong way. So by reaching higher consciousness, we will learn that we will take this AI technology, and they've showed me visions of this. And the way they explain it is this: AI technology is a man-made program. It is a man-made tool. We now are getting the intelligence, and we understand we are the human beings that made these tools. We are going to stay in charge of it. That's why we have to go through this evolutionary stage of higher consciousness to understand we have to have new ways of thinking, and utilize these things with our intelligence for the betterment of all human beings. They've been sitting on technology and taking advantage of us for way, way too long. These things are going to change through us going through our evolutionary change and understanding. And they are here reaching out to humanity. I want you to think about this. Humanity is a very, very, very large number in comparison to any governments.
Yeah, that's true.
Government officials are temporary seat holders.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to get past, in great number, past these elites that are controlling them. And that's who they are. That's who they have me and people like me reaching out to. And I'm not just reaching out to the United States. This is not about the United States. This is not about me. This is a worldwide thing.
Right.
And I am podcasting any place that will have me that speaks English across the world. And I'm working on going to the United Nations and talking to them. That is my goal, because this is worldwide.
So,
and like you are helping to get my message out.
If these entities have been in contact with you, wouldn't you suppose that it'd be a wise decision for them to make to be in contact with those humans that are on the top of these governmental agencies, to maybe have the help of them to disclose?
They cannot reach higher consciousness until they start having. They gave me a Kundalini awakening about 2 years ago. I was already progressing because through process of elimination and my visits with them and my asking questions like why this was happening to me, why my family, why my children, what is the purpose, what does this mean? And they showed me a vision, and the vision was of myself. And I now know I was one of them. I was an interdimensional in my life before, and I chose to come here. My children chose to come here because this is a huge evolutionary step for humanity. And we made a choice to come here. So we are here having a human experience. We're not special. I can't do anything special. I'm a human being. Simple, just I'm a human being. But I've been groomed into being a person to help humanity understand we are not alone in the universe, to help humanity understand that it's time. We are going through an evolutionary phase. We are leaving a 3D dimension, going into a higher dimension, and we have beautiful, wonderful things to look forward to. and how we can learn to become more positive and raise our frequencies on our own. And I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of people around the world are going to start having Kundalini awakenings, because that's part of the evolutionary process. Is as we become more positive, our frequencies get higher. You can feel a vibrational change in your body, and it feels good. And have you ever heard about, like, runners will go out and run because they want that adrenaline rush?
Mm-hmm.
This is very much kind of like what that feels like. I mean, when my frequency is really high, people, this sounds retarded, I know, but people are attracted to positive people. People are attracted, and they want to know, how do you have that attitude? How, like if it's cloudy and ugly outside, I'll say, well, it's raining, but we're going to have fun, but we're going to get wet. But I turn it into a positive. I don't look at the negative sides of life. I don't listen to the news, and I'm a human being. So I automatically have negative thoughts, because that's what we've been programmed to be like. They've programmed us through our education systems, through having to work, having to take care of our families. And they do this intentionally to keep humanity separated, because they know once we unite and come together, there is no stopping us.
United we stand, divided we fall.
Exactly.
Right.
And on another thing I want you've always heard probably too, as above, so below.
Mm-hmm.
There's a real meaning to that. And that meaning is whatever happens down here on Earth ripples out into the universe and affects extraterrestrials and interdimensionals, and it affects other planets and the whole universe. So it's very important that good things happen on this planet. They want to see beautiful things happen, because as above, so below, what happens below affects above. So, there's so much misinformation out there from way back. And I'm not just talking about since 1947, when we had the Roswell incident. These things have been going on for a very, very long time. And it was all done to keep us separated, divided, and at lower consciousness, so that we could be controlled.
What you just said earlier about when you went through the ceiling, you felt this frequency and vibration. Do you think that plays a part in it, being able to
Absolutely
manipulate through there?
Well, what they were doing, we are in a low frequency, being a human being. They are at a much higher frequency. So they were changing my frequency to match their frequency. And that is how I was able to do it. Mm. And I also know that when I'm traveling to craft, when I see the craft, it looks maybe like the size of half a football field. But when I get and walk into the craft, it's like you walk in and everything is like a new dimension. It's like everything is huge, and it's like very massive comparatively to what I saw on the outside.
Do you think there's like the involvement of a portal or anything like that?
I don't know everything, and I don't claim to know everything, but I can tell you what I do know. So I know that I know if a craft is close by, she'll take me by the hand and we will go. I know that if it's further away, I am put in some type of portal, tunnel. It feels kind of like a tunnel, more or less.
Like a wormhole, maybe.
Yeah, it's weird. It's really weird. And a lot of times, most of the time, she'll put me in that kind of like meditative state, because sometimes when I'm coming back, she wakes me up to put me in the bed, but I can still feel that. And it's like my body feels like it's been on like unbelievable spin. It's I don't know anything to even compare it to.
Got some crazy jet lag.
Yeah. But
so like you mentioned earlier, there's some people who have reported, their experiences to be negative ones.
Yeah.
And the ones that you've had are mostly positive after you've overcome the fear that you had. how do you like explain the difference between these experiences that people are having?
Well, they're real. Their experiences are real. And that was their interpretation of what was happening. And there's a lot of people like Travis Walton, who I have met, Geraldine Orozco, who I have met on a podcast with her. I was on the same show with her. And these are people that, for Travis, it was the one abduction where they made the movie about him, Fire in the Sky.
Mm-hmm.
And he'll be happy to tell you that when it happened to him, and for years, he thought it was the most horrible thing. And of course, when he sold out his rights to the movie industry, they turned it into what would sell to an audience, not the true happenings of what happened. They turned it into, box stick seller, So it was over dramatized.
Right.
But he'll tell you he understands now through his personal growth, spiritual growth, and understanding and reflection back on it, they saved his life. They could have left him there and he would have died, but they got him, they cured him, and then they let him off in an area where he would be easily found, not where they found him out in the woods, because chances are he might not have ever been found because it was a week later. So, and then Geraldine Orozco, she thinks that it is part of a process that she's got a lot more strategy on these type things. That's her thing. And she thinks that everyone that has these experiences made a choice, like they made soul contracts or something of this nature, to agreements. And I do know, like I made an agreement I wasn't interdimensional, but I made an agreement to come here. So, and a lot of people believe that we all make choices to be here. And I believe that too, that we all made a choice to have the human experience. And when we get here, all of our past memories and lives or whatever are erased because we're here to learn new experiences. And we decide what we're going to experience before we get here. So she thinks maybe that they already had made agreements with extraterrestrials or what have you. So I don't know everything, and I don't mind being corrected if somebody is hearing this and thinks something might be different. I don't mind what people have to tell me, but I do know that a lot of people, when you get that fear, and I know what that fear is like, and there's nothing like it in the world that I've ever experienced, that fear and that feeling that you get from the frequency exchange. So when they put you out, your mind will just go crazy trying to fill in those blanks. And of course, us being in a negative world that tells us all these negative things, we are going to think, you're going to think negative things. But not every case is the same. So I don't know. Not everybody, even that considers themselves an abductee, considers it bad. You tend to hear more of the bad things. It's just like on the news. All you hear is the bad things. When did they ever say it's a beautiful, bright day and everybody's happy and everybody got along? But
so do you think it's a perspective thing of the, abductee and their experience and how they're perceiving it only? Or do you think there's also, maybe you do know, there's also, maybe warring factions of these extraterrestrials?
Well,
where there's some that have malicious intent.
Okay, no, they are past all evil, warlike ways, and they would not do anything intentionally to create these things. However, I do know this. For example, there are many, many different races of grays, many, many different races of reptilians, many, many different races of each and every group that we know of here on Earth. And they don't even call themselves by those names. The female gray that comes from me is a reddish brown color, and they do not call themselves grays at all. But anyway, so I know that when this is from a extraterrestrial perspective, okay? So you're an extraterrestrial and you're coming down here and you see a group of individuals, say governments and these elites that are really interested in technology, and say your race is everyone in your race, like all grays, each race has a specific function, a service to community. So in that particular race, say they're all genetic scientists, okay? So they come down here and they make a agreement with, say, a government and a group of people. They will give them some technology and trade to do genetic research on some humans, okay? All right. So the way that the extraterrestrial sees this is they know everything we do, and they see us sending our biologists, our vets, or our scientists go out into the woods or into jungles and get birds, reptiles, alligators, aquatic beings from the oceans and seas. We tag them, we take samples from them, we monitor them, watch them. You know, they take blood samples or whatever. They do these things. So how is it different from what they are doing if that's all they're doing? And that's the way they see it, is that they were not doing anything wrong.
Right.
They saw themselves as not doing anything that we weren't already doing here on Earth. And by the way, they are billions of years ahead of us. And from the technology, they have done work on me, medical work. They have fixed my kidney. They've done a lot of different things, you know. And I am under what I came here as is an interplanetary, or actually a interdimensional soul contract. And I know that when I leave this earth, my soul and my consciousness are going back home to my place, which is on that mothership with those people. And I know that I still have family there. So I'm not really under any, they wouldn't be stepping over any boundaries to do stuff on me. But other human beings that are here, say if there were an angelic, come from the angelic soul realm, or if they came just from the earth soul realm, their contracts would be different and their agreements. So they cannot overstep those boundaries or contracts. So they're limited in what they can do here on Earth. So if we get in a war and stuff, they can't come down here and fix it, because it's kind of like.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but we're about to lose that time. So I just have to. I'll send you a relink.
Okay.
Unless this lets us just rejoin this after, but keep that thought, please.
Be right back.
So one thing that I know is different from my experiences is that in some cases, it seems like perhaps the extraterrestrials, first of all, they are very task-oriented, very agenda-oriented. They do not have emotions like human beings. There is no negotiations. There is no friendliness, although I can see the friendliness because I understand. I've been doing this for a very, very long time. But they come across as being robotic to a lot of people, but they are not. They are biological, but they are very, very different. They don't, they're telepathic, so they don't have any expressions or anything on their face, even a raise of an eyebrow or anything. They just don't have those type emotions at all. So they're misunderstood. And also because of them being very task oriented, and because they're rather Grays always travel in threes. Okay. And the purpose for that is that one is there really doing all of the work. The other two are basically kind of like backup because we are really stronger than they are. So there's a lot of reasons why they would kind of put us in that sedated type state so that they can do their job. They don't want to experience those feelings and emotions, and they don't want to fight. You know, they're not a warlike race by any means. They do not fight. It would be something really, really devastating to push them to that point because they're that far up in the evolution that those things don't exist. So, but a lot of, because of them being very task oriented, if some people were cooperating and were staying consciously awake, and maybe they were allowing them to stay in that state, I could see where they could come across as being uncaring, you know, but you have to understand they are a billion years ahead of us. And like I said, they've done a lot of like medical procedures and stuff on me. And if you think about our technology, what we are capable of doing and creating, like creating our own hybrids, creating, oh gosh, I'm losing the word. I'm trying to, clones. Okay, I just went lost there for a minute. Are creating clones. And I was just reading an article where now they can take a cell from a human being and create an organ or create, they don't even need an egg or an ovary. If we can do that now, and they are billions of years ahead of us, where did all these stories come from?
Do you think that's technology that they've helped humanity achieve?
What I'm saying is that these people misunderstood what was happening to them. They don't use needles or probes. They have high-tech technology. There would be no reason for them to implant those ideas into somebody's mind, but I can see where it'd be easily for them to try to fill in blanks with negative aspects from other things that they have read and been programmed to think, because even cattle mutilations, that was not done by extraterrestrials. They do not eat, they would not touch our water. It's toxins and poisons. They would not they don't like our air. They don't like the density of earth. They don't eat meat. They don't, you know, they don't eat 3 meals a day like we do. You know, we are like glutinous, you know, we fantasize over our food. We, you know, that's some people, they live for their food. For them, they may eat like once a week. They only eat when they need the nutrients. They don't see it as a indulgent, fun, spectacular thing like humans do. It is simply a nutrient, and they make foods are not glamorous, and you know, it's just not like that. Their things are just nutrients, you know, more like on the organic side of things. So, and then the Greys, they don't have a digestive system like we do. They do not eat through their mouth. They make a paste, a nutrient paste, and they rub it on their skin, and it's absorbed into their skin. And then the way that it's expelled is secreted out the skin.
Have you witnessed this?
Yes.
Wow, that's fascinating.
Yes.
I have a question, a little bit of a callback to something you mentioned earlier about being put into sleep paralysis.
Yes.
So I have some experiences myself with sleep paralysis, but they have nothing to do with extraterrestrials. I experienced sleep paralysis when I learned how to astral travel. Mm-hmm. And the guided meditation that I used, I experienced very similar sensations to what you described, where you said you felt like a frequency change, your shift going from your head down your entire body to your feet and back up. And I experienced the same thing. Yeah. And I left my soul, my spirit left my body. And I looked back down at my bed, and I was, you know, floating in the middle of the room in my spirit astral form. and I saw my body there. And I had various ways of confirming that it wasn't just a dream. You know, like I looked at the clock and took a note of the time, asked someone who passed by in the room, like, hey, what were you doing at this time? And I confirmed that it was real. So my question is, how do you suppose that sleep paralysis experience that I've had since I've started practicing the astral travel, to be clear, I don't any longer, but I have, how do you suppose that they're linked, the sleep paralysis with astral travel and the sleep paralysis with the extraterrestrials?
Well, they put me in a sleep paralysis because they wanted me to be fully conscious. They wanted me to see that this is not just about me. They wanted me to know that my children had made agreements and were part of this package that we came down on Earth. We're on a mission to help humanity. So they could have easily done it without me knowing, but they wanted me to know. And at the time, I didn't understand the purpose of it. Now I'm older and I've matured into all this. And now I have an understanding of why they did it, because they wanted me to realize that our perceptions at an early stage of consciousness, there's nothing wrong with it. And it's, you know, people aren't necessarily making up stories or anything, but it's our perceptions change as we progress further along, and our understanding and awareness changes. And because of our programming in our early life, I mean, if you stop and think about it, how many times have you read about witches being burned at the stake, or people that were doing magic or things that appeared like magic? It was considered demonic. So we are programmed to not believe certain things and to look at it as negative. So the sleep paralysis part, I don't really understand. You know, I would think that they probably had something to do with that.
That's what I was going to ask. Yeah.
They can be invisible.
They can be invisible.
Yes, I've experienced that. They could be here right now.
Okay, so
the craft could be parked here right now in this room, or they could be in the room with you right now, and you would not know it. The only way that they've shown me this is they take a clock that that's run on at a battery, not hooked up to electricity or anything, and they'll take the clock hand and move it all the way to 4 and then stop, then do it again, then stop, then do it again.
That's their way of telling you they're here?
Yes.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Now, you said you've been doing this for a long time.
64 years.
Do you think you have the ability to feel or sense other people that are in your similar situation?
Yes.
You can? Okay.
They're a higher frequency. My son is at the same frequency as me. And it's beautiful because when I was growing up, I had no one to talk to. And it was not easy. It was not fun. And there were times I thought I was going crazy, because nobody wanted to hear it. Nobody wanted to talk about it. And everything that I was learned through school and, says these things aren't possible and they're not normal. So it was hard, but I'm proud that he's in his 40s and now he and I can have these interesting conversations, and what we really think, like we've had these. For example, we sometimes wonder, because our dream states are just as active as our daily human life. Mm-hmm. Sometimes we wonder, maybe we're an extraterrestrial and this is all a dream state.
Oh, that's a crazy thought.
They're in a stasis and down here is just the dream. And we both know that in extraterrestrial reality, there is no such thing as time. Everything is here and now. Everything's happening at once. So we're like, it seems like 64 years is a long time, but really, when you really stop thinking about it with what they've taught us, it's really nothing compared. I mean, they live much longer lives than we do. This is nothing to them. And if, for example, when I go with them, if I kind of am semi-aware, because a lot of times I don't think about looking at clocks. I don't look for things like that. It's just
you're past that point.
But for example, say if I come back and see that it's 2 o'clock or whatever, 4 o'clock in the morning, and I remember, well, what did I do last? And so it may have been like, say, an hour. Okay. But in the experience, it seemed like it was a long, long time. You know, like what I was experiencing, it seemed like it was more than an hour, like days or a week.
Do you have to be in person with people that you can get the sense or feel that they're also in the same boat, or can you tell like on a phone call or like video chatting?
For me, like for example, I can be out shopping, and this has happened here in Mississippi. I've been out shopping and I've ran into extraterrestrials that were down here experiencing being around humans, and I feel their frequency. Yeah.
Wow.
And there's some humans that they're, I think they're probably kind of like me. They're really in tune with them.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm to the point now where they don't have to change my frequency like they did before. I'm just at a higher, I'm at a higher frequency, and people notice that about me, and they'll ask me, how are you so positive? Or, and some people really can't stand to be around me because I am so positive. And, because I refuse to let negative energy I build a boundary around me, and I will not let anyone take away my positive energy.
That'll take your frequency
down. They can say anything to me, and I will not let it. I keep a boundary around myself, and it will drive them nuts because some people just want to try to pick at you. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely. Those people exist.
Yeah.
I think we got a question lined up for you about your time in the Department of Defense. I think you had a question about that.
Yeah. So given your background, do you believe that there is a government cover-up regarding extraterrestrial interactions? And if so, why?
There is, because our government, who wants to be the first government in this world where there's a war going on? Who wants to come out and say, yes, extraterrestrials are here, and they've been here since before 1947, and we do not understand where they come from. We do not understand the technology they have. We do not understand anything about them. And to put out that vulnerability before Americans, but not just Americans, but to all these other worlds around us that look up to us and look for us to be the supportive nation, when it comes to these things. So I understand why they're not doing it. And I think what they're really doing is they're hoping that the James Webb Telescope will find something and they won't have to be the ones to do this. And that will kind of help them to slide under the curtail of that. And they're hoping that people will be so excited and stuff that they'll maybe not ask so many questions about, like, was Roswell real? What happened to JFK? Blah, 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 blah. Conspiracy. And I also know from my experiences with the interdimensionals that as we reach higher consciousness, we will become a more forgiving race. And we need to become a more forgiving race. And we need to look at it in this fashion. When we are born, we have to fall before we learn to walk.
Mm-hmm.
As a growing nation and as human beings, we have made mistakes. Yes, some were awful, some were okay, but all these things had to happen to get us to where we are today, okay? That's in the past, but we have higher intelligence. So it's what decisions we make from this day forward with this intelligence is what's important. We cannot be mad and throw up arms against and all these negative feelings and stuff, because that's keeping us back down in that time frame of those occurrences. We need to move forward and be a forgiving race that has learned from these mistakes and understand we had to go through some bad things to get us to stand up for who we are today, to understand our true origins, to understand our planet and understand the world around us, and no more lies. You know, we've been lied to about our origins. We've been lied to about the history of our planet. All these things have been done to keep us at a lower consciousness, and these things are changing. And we're going to have to learn to be better human beings.
I think that's a good answer. What kind of things were you responsible for, if you're allowed to disclose? I know there's clearances and stuff, but your time in Department of Defense?
If anything, the interdimensionals and I used them. They have instigated, I don't know if you looked at my bio, well, even on Facebook, whatever, but I've lived in a lot of different places and been around a lot of different cultures. These were places that the interdimensionals wanted me to experience.
Right, like the Mexico one?
Oh, yes,
yeah,
absolutely.
I watched some of your interviews.
Oh, yeah. They wanted me to experience. They instigated that whole trip. And I think they wanted me to go to work. And I worked for the Department of Defense for the Army as a civilian. And I worked in dentistry in a teaching facility. So the beautiful part about that was, yes, I got to work with a lot of soldiers, getting them prepared to deploy overseas for war. So I saw that aspect of what it's like, but also the technology that they were privileged to having. I worked at Schofield Barracks in Oahu, and then I also worked at Fort Benning, Georgia, at Harmony Church Dental Clinic, and also a little bit at Love Dental Clinic. And they had technologies there that were 3D. And these were the same technology that had been used to look at those mummies that were brought before their congressional hearings in Mexico back last fall.
Yeah, I've seen
Nobody would look at those because of the presenter. I can't think, Jamie, whatever, I can't think of his name. But anyway, he has a reputation of
falsifying.
Yes. Yeah. So nobody would even look at these things and take it into consideration. But for me, I knew exactly when they said 3D imaging what that meant. And you cannot cheat on those top x-rays. When we take an x-ray, you take it from the front or the back or the sides, you know, the camera moves around and you have like the film, all this. But for 3D that most places don't have in private practices and stuff, but the Army had it, it takes the x-ray from the inside of the bone and it shows every single thing all the way around, every little capillary hoe, every little ligament attachment, every single thing. You cannot cheat. If they put in chicken bones, it would stand out like a sore thumb. So they, if anything, you have to understand too, I was one of them before I came here. Through my eyes and through my experiences throughout my life, they know firsthand now what it's like, what the human experience is all alike. And throughout my life, I've had many, just like any other human, I've had many horrible things happen. Been through 2 divorces, fought over children. I lost a daughter-in-law that was 29 that had 2 young children. You know, my life has not been easy or been pampered by any means. I've had the full 9 yards of the human experience, but they would come down to me at times and tell me, if it ever got to be too much, I could always come home. And at the times, a lot of times when this was happening in my 30s and 40s, it didn't register with me that to me, this was my only home I knew of. But they had been telling me this stuff, but it didn't set in until they gave me that Kundalini awakening. And then it was like, bam, bam, bam. I know all this, you know. So it all came clear.
It's like repressed memories, kind of. Yes.
And see, our human brain suppresses things from us, you know, and that's one of the main things they're always checking on me, my mental health, you know, because anybody that experiences having an extraterrestrial life and a human experience, you've got to check their mental health well-being because it's not easy, you know, especially when the world around you is telling you you're crazy. You know what I'm saying? So that's another thing about this whole disclosure thing. We need to be prepared for these people who wake up. And if they haven't reached this higher stage of consciousness, they may still go through some very frightful, fearful things. And I feel like our mental health specialists and all physicians need to be prepared just in case.
Yeah, I think the mental health professionals tend to discount, the paranormal answers or explanations to why people suffer from certain things, like schizophrenia. They need to
open their eyes up, and learn about
schizophrenia. People they don't even fully understand what schizophrenia is, what causes it, how to medicate it. They just know how to make the symptoms go down a little bit, and that's about it. Maybe manage it. They don't even know what's doing it. I can tell you,
if we play our cards right and do improve ourselves to be better human beings, they are there to help us, and we can live much longer lives. We can have a world without poverty. We can have a world without diseases. We can have clean air, water, and all these things. And in the future, the visions they've showed me that we will choose jobs. We will not even call them jobs. We will choose what we consider and what they call service to self or service to community. And it will be things that you love to do, not things that pay the most money. Our materialistic ways will diminish through this process as well. And through this technology used in the proper ways, it won't destroy jobs. It will open up new opportunities for human beings. And we will be doing things we love and letting AI produce more things for us that will improve the betterment of humanity. So it's the visions they show me. It is beautiful and it is wonderful. And I know, just like anybody else, it won't happen overnight, but we have to start at some point, and the time is now. We are reaching a higher level, and we need to get this information out to many people as possible to help them not to necessarily listen to what everything I say or believe everything I say, but believe in yourself. Look within. For me, I say, I want to know the Nancy Timms, not the one that the world around me has created. I want to know the Nancy Timms within my soul self, my inner soul self that chose to be here on earth. I want to know what my purpose in life is. What did I come here to achieve? So I meditate to myself, my subconscious, and ask it to open up to my human consciousness and quit hiding things from me. Reveal things to me. Help me to know right from wrong. Help me to make better decisions, to be a better human being, and to help other people around me, starting with myself and branching out with my grandchildren and my children, and then other people as they want it. And I'm not talking about believing everything I believe. I'm talking about becoming a better human being with a new way of thinking and a new way of living. And that's why I say we, humanity, we are the disclosure. We are the disclosure. We know a lot within us, and we have denied ourselves because of this programming and because of them manipulating us. All we got to do is wake up and know what's truly in our minds and in our hearts and our soul selves. And our higher consciousness will help us once we ask it to. We are the disclosure. We don't need governments to tell us anything. We will know these things, and we're headed straight to that point.
I think people need to see it for themselves. But if you have you ever encountered any like physical evidence or documentations that would support anything, any of your occurrences?
Well, for me, they manifest themselves like I can be on the side of the road and I'll see a silver disc sitting there hovering above the ground. But that was for me. That wasn't for me to take a camera. You have to understand, they are not here. They do not have egos. They are not here to impress anybody until you learn these things from within, in your heart, in your mind. And it's like you said, you have to experience it yourself. So you have to experience these emotions and feelings within. And they are not here to impress. I'm not here to impress. I'm not here selling anything. You know, it's not about it's not about that. It's about people understanding understanding who we are.
So you think you were the only one that was able to see that on purpose? Or do you think
I would hope I'm not the only one.
just in that sense where it revealed itself, do you think like if someone else was driving down the road, they would see that, or it was only meant for you to see at that time?
I know it meant everything to me, and I started crying. It was the most beautiful thing because that was affirmation, because I was scared and felt insecure about going. I went and talked to mental health therapists in my community to try to get them to start like educating themselves and telling them about places like OPUS, Opus, or TESA, or UAP Medical Coalition, all these different places where they could be learning and maybe participate if they wanted to, but to start getting them prepared. And when I left, and I talked to like 10 different ones, and when I left, I was riding in my car through a Amish community, and I was going through looking at all their plants and all, their vegetable patches, and it's beautiful. And I was thinking, oh man, these people could get together and say, this woman needs to be institutionalized or whatever. I was sitting here thinking that. And then all of a sudden, telepathically, they said, look to your left. And I looked, and there they sat on the side of the road, sitting in a Amish community field. So
imagine if they came outside, they're like, what is this technology?
Well, it's really odd because that particular time of day, they have no electricity. And it was the end of summer, early fall, like right between August and September, right in there, or September. So at 2-3 o'clock in the afternoon, they're all inside. It's too hot. Even their animals are put up in the barn and stuff. So, but the whole scenario, like, why did I choose to go that way home? It's like it was all intentionally done. And as we progress, they will start to show themselves more to us, and they are not hiding from us. They are in our skies everywhere. They are all over our solar system. The problem is we simply cannot see them.
Mm-hmm. Well, you mentioned that they have abilities.
Because we're locked in a 3D realm.
On top of that fact, you mentioned that they have abilities, like they can be invisible. And I've heard in one of your other interviews that they can like shapeshift or present themselves as things that would make you more comfortable or something like that.
Well, for example, I was somewhere where I was upset and they wanted to talk to me. So they took an image from my mind, and they did not change themselves into it, but they used an image that I would feel comfortable with, but it was also someone that I would know that would never be in the room with me, So, and we had the whole conversation, and they did that because they didn't want to startle me and upset me, because they lose my whole concept. They understand once we have that fear or whatever, all mentality or sense diminishes, So they were trying to keep me at a stable, comfortable level and have a communication with me. Yeah, they can do all these things, but they didn't change into that. But that's what they took the image from my mind.
So what you perceive them as is the image from your mind, but they're not physically shape-shifting.
Exactly.
Okay, because I was going to ask a follow-up, like, do you think maybe these sightings in the cryptid community of werewolves?
Well, I can tell you a whole story about that. I've had an experience where we went looking for creatures.
What kind of creatures did you look for?
Well, okay, so the Grays came and got me, took me on craft. And when I got on craft, I didn't see those anymore. That's all they do is the legwork. So once I was on craft, I was around tall Grays, Nordics, Palladians, aquatic beings, interdimensionals that are 7 to 8 foot tall and have they're more white, luminescent
Are those
looking.
the Anunnaki?
Don't know. Some of them, I don't ask a lot of questions. I don't think they were Anunnaki. They're more of a higher consciousness. They're more of a luminescent, and that is because that's the way they're foreseen as being higher consciousness, and they are of a higher dimension.
Okay.
You know, which is not a physical place. It's just a higher realm of consciousness. So when I got on craft, they had like these computer screens all around, and they were like looking for, and they weren't like ours. They were basically just blank looking screen things that had like these heat sensor, like you could see movement through heat movement. And so they were looking for these, they called them creatures to me. They didn't use the word cryptids, and I didn't even know what that word was when this happened or anything. And I did not do anything. I was simply an observer. So they were looking for these creatures, and they had like they were left their dimension and went into, say, planet Earth, or they were on planet Earth, and they were creating havoc. So their job was to go collect this creature, contain it, and take it back to where it belonged, because they do not want anything to disrupt humanity. You know, so the one that I saw and they went to pick up was between cat, dog, or fox type thing. So it was very strange. I've seen other ones that I don't even know what it may have been. What I think was maybe what we would consider an archon, it was a dying race, and it was like screaming and for help, and it was like dying for attention, and they were, you know, for whatever reason, they wanted me to experience, and I saw that on a different planet, and they wanted me to not be judgmental of it, and they wanted me to learn that some species act erratically because of their situation or whatever. But basically, for me, they wanted me to not be judgmental of any creature, you know, regardless of what I thought it was or whatever. So, but the cat-like creature, they got it, contained it, and then they took it back to the proper dimension it belonged in. So, in my opinion, and from what they told me, is that they do not like these cryptids or creatures disrupting humanity. So that's why you'll hear about a lot of Bigfoots and stuff, about a UFO being nearby. So if they feel like the Bigfoot or Sasquatch is creating some kind of too much interest or whatever the reason, they will go and get it and move it or relocate it, you know, or take it back to where it belongs, because they're from a different dimension. But they do like to come down here and visit, you know.
That could explain like the mysterious vanishings right before people's eyes.
And that's why you never see their bones.
Right.
That's why from Expedition Bigfoot touches that too.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah. So, but again, there's some that I think that do live out in the forest, and they don't really want to have any human contact, because they know they're better off without it. They don't want to interfere with us, and they don't want us interfering with them, because they like where they are in their way of life. So they don't want to be around us. And for that very reason, is because they know that they will have to leave if it comes to a point to where it's causing havoc.
Well, we're getting to the end of the next segment here, so I think we're just going to end the interview. Any other last questions you have before we have her give all of her contact info, her links, or anything?
Not really. The last question I had was more of a for me question, because I've experienced things when I was younger as well. So that was more for me. So appreciate you answering that, and every other question you've answered. And thank you for taking the time to speak with us.
Anytime. This is my sole mission. I'm proud to be who I am. A long time I struggled with wondering who in the world I was, and why did I feel like I belonged somewhere else. You know, it was not easy. but I'm proud to be who I am. And I truly want to help humanity, and I truly want to learn how to do this to make it relatable and understandable to people without stepping on toes and making people angry. But sometimes it's hard to know how much I can say, without upsetting people. So it's not an easy job, but
Oh, yeah,
I do
absolutely.
love it.
If anyone else, when we post this, has any other questions, we'd love to have you back on for another interview
I
if
don't
possible. Okay.
Yeah,
perfect.
because I'm learning. I do not know everything. I'm learning more and more about this every day. And I think all of us, all of humanity, it's going to always be that way. We're just going to be continually learning more about who we are and our origins and things about our planet. I think it's just going to be very exciting.
Awesome. So do you have a website or any
Yes,
social media?
timefordisclosure.com, and then the Facebook group is time for disclosure / we have never been alone / we are the disclosure. And I truly believe all of us are. We are all part of this.
Okay, so all of you checking us out at Beyond the Hub podcast on YouTube, make sure you head over there, especially if you have any, encounters yourself that maybe you want to have her on as an interview. She gave you the contact info right there. And Nancy Thames, correct? Nancy Thames?
Thames, yeah.
Thames. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Y'all have a wonderful evening.
Thank you as well.
You too.
All right. Bye-bye.
Take care
Bye.
now.